Hello, hello. As usual, another Sunday, another chapter. This week's chapter was a continuation of the Phantom Troupe flashback. There's a little bit less to look into for this chapter, but still a good amount. Just want to say I'm visiting family, so if there's extra background noise, my apologies. And you might think, oh, just record when you're gone. But the thing is, by the time I'll be back home, it'll be about time for the next chapter. So it was either record this one with some background noise, or wait until next week. And I choose a little bit of background noise. Also, at the end of the video, I'll be sharing some really good ideas I saw in the comments of my last video, but with all that said, let's get into it. So we continue the Phantom Troupe flashback, and there's an announcement from the church that there will be a screening of a video. Tons of kids enter through the gates of the church, and as kids enter, the preacher and Chrollo hand out snacks. Chrollo is still the same old super nice past Chrollo, and he tells kids to take as much snacks as they want. Chrollo feels a menacing presence as he's grabbed by Uvogin, and we see a surprisingly terrifying look from Uvo, who's just a kid at this point. Uvo says menacingly that he's really looking forward to the after party, because he's still mad Chrollo took the videotape that he saw as his. And if that wasn't bad enough, Finks and Phaeton come over to Chrollo and say if he survives his date with Uvo, to come join them to play soccer. This was just a second kind of threat to Chrollo because Finks is mad he got tricked. But what I thought was interesting was just the fact that these kids play soccer. I think not only does it add to how normal these kids are, continuing this genuine innocence of these early spiders, but I think it would be hilarious seeing these kids actually play soccer. Because as a big soccer fan, what would these kids be like? I feel like Chrollo could be one of the best center mids in the world. Phaeton would be an extremely dangerous winger, and I just know no one is getting past Uvo on the back line. I'm not sure how many people care about that, but I thought it was funny to think about. Sarsa then comes up to Finks and hands him the basket of snacks and tells him it's his turn to hand out snacks. He is annoyed at first, but quickly takes the basket and starts handing out the snacks. Sarsa then tells Chrollo that Finks is a softie deep down, and he can leave Uvo to her too. Sheila then says, "No wonder we call you lil bro. Even the youngest has to look out for you." This is yet just another line that makes me sad, because it makes me feel once again more of the loss Chrollo has gone through. I'm getting the sense that for a long time, Chrollo felt like everyone else was always helping him or protecting him. He always tried to do good for and to others, yet he was always being protected and helped by them. And I believe as time went on, he started to feel like he wanted to protect them rather than be protected. And this just adds to the guilt he likely feels for the deaths of people like Uvogin, Pakunoda, and Shulnark. And as I've said before, I think he feels responsible for their deaths. And once again, seeing the spiders as these innocent kids adds to my ability to feel Chrollo's pain. And I saved this part for last because I felt like it was pretty obvious, but I like how Sarsa says that Finks is a softie deep down, because I think we really see that on the Black Whale. Not that he's literally a softie and going out of his way to help and be kind to everyone, but I do think we see a more human side to him than we have before. And I just like that being a softie deep down has just always been part of who he is. Anyway, Pakunoda then says that she likes Chrollo just the way he is, and Chrollo smiles, pleased by what she said. Kids flood into the screening room and the TV show begins. The cleanup rangers hit the screen and all the kids are amazed and excited. They're excited it's a show that they love, but also so excited because they can understand it due to the dub Chrollo did. We then see that Uvo, Machi, Phaeton, and Finks are all shocked by the quality of the TV show and the dub. Shulnark even points out to Franklin that the voices are Paku and Chrollo. Franklin says that he knew that they were hiding something and this must have been what it was. And we see once again just how much the kids of Meteor City are enjoying the show. And it's sad but also nice seeing these kids be so happy and have such a good time. It's great seeing it because I always thought of Meteor City as a terrible place where no one could be happy, but it also saddens me because I know that it will not stay this way. Chrollo says that everyone is really enjoying the show and that Paku, Sheila, and Sarsa must have practiced a lot to give such a good performance. But Paku says it's nothing compared to the work Chrollo Krollo put in. Everything's going good until something with the audio gets messed up. Krollo and the girls are shocked and worried that all their hard work had gotten ruined. The kids watching are also upset that the video was cut short, and the preacher says that he can fix the audio tape, but it'll take time. We see some kids complaining, but what's really important here is we finally see Nobunaga being as chill as ever. Krollo then asks the preacher for the microphone, but then Uvo yells from the top of the stands, "Hurry and play the rest, you bastard." Or is that all you got, Krollo? I really like this part because you can tell that Uvo really enjoyed watching the show and was disappointed that it stopped. But due to his personality, he couldn't just be like, "Aw, Krollo, let's find a way to keep it going." Nah, he can't do that. So instead, he messes and jokes with Krollo. And the way he does it, I think, adds to this feeling of an older brother, something I knew was gonna happen, or at least should happen, but last chapter we didn't quite see it. But now that we are, I like it. So Krollo grabs the microphone and finishes the lines that were being said before the audio cut out. And this shocks Uvo. But I don't think it's a shock of, oh, he actually did it. I think it's a shock of excitement. I think he's excited because he was trying to nudge Krollo in the direction of a solution, and now that Krollo has found one, and quickly at that, he's excited that he can enjoy the rest of the show. Real quick, just want to say I moved locations, so the audio quality might change, so you might have to turn up or turn down the volume, not sure, just wanted to give a warning. Anyway, Krollo starts performing his lines, and we see him take on almost different personas as he says different characters' lines. Kids see him do the different voices and they're impressed and excited that someone they know and someone their age are doing all these voices. Uvo is once again shocked, but like before, it's not just normal surprised. I think he's more so impressed. Impressed Krollo is so talented, and he's realizing that Krollo made much better use of the tape than he ever could. Krollo then raises his hand and everyone gets quiet. He says that they'll resume the video and do a live performance, and he says for the audience to give him a countdown from 3. Yet again, Uvo is surprised, but this time, I think it's due to the charisma he saw from Krollo. As if he thought Krollo might get all nervous, but he's surprised by his positive mentality, surprised of his ability to act so quick and intelligently. I also think that specifically when we see Krollo raise his hand and everyone goes quiet, I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but even though we know the type of person Krollo turns into, I felt like seeing him quiet the crowd, having his hair cover his eyes, and have everyone go silent upon request is almost like foreshadowing the person he becomes, foreshadowing the leader and almost godlike figure he turns into. Like I said, we already know the type of person he turns into, but at the same time, we get this feeling of almost foreshadowing. And just to clarify real quick, I don't think Krollo literally is seen as a god, but when I said godlike, I meant that people like the spiders look up to him, listen to him, and follow his commands almost to a degree where they're following a god, but instead of trusting and following some mythical creature, they follow Krollo. And another way to kind of explain what I'm trying to say here is maybe think of Krollo as God and the spiders as his angels. It's not quite the relationship between God and humans, if that makes sense, but I'm gonna leave it there. Anyway, the auditorium of kids gets super excited and they count down. We see their faces covered in smiles, and the screening continues. Two super quick things about this. One, I hope everyone noticed that the cleanup ranger we see is literally identical to Gon. Obviously, it's not literally him, but I took it as Togashi, I guess, commemorating Gon. You know, adding a little Easter egg. The second thing is it just breaks my heart seeing how happy all these kids from Meteor City are. Knowing that this is likely the first time these kids are this happy and excited. All of Krollo's friends and family are so happy. And it also feels like it'll be the last time. And like I've said many times, I don't want to feel bad for the troupe, but I can't help it. Seeing how kind and joyful they are as children, and knowing the pain that must lie ahead is just saddening to me. Sheila and Sarasa then give their performances, but as it gets back to Krollo, we see him really get into character as he voices the villain. I thought it was really ridiculous seeing him look so evil as just a kid, but it's not so much that he's an evil kid, it's more so that he's able to tap into the emotions he has, those of anger, sadness, and rage, rage because of the situation he was raised in. He was able to tap into these emotions almost like he was method acting, and because of that, the performance he gives feels genuine. And his performance feeling genuine is reflected by the reactions of Uvo, Franklin, Shalnark, Finks, Phaeton, Nobunaga, and Machi. Uvo has a second close-up of his face, but why it's this way I'll get into in a moment. But all of the spiders are enamored, especially Nobunaga, because once again, they're feeling and seeing Chrollo's charisma, his emotion, determination. And something interesting I've noticed with Chrollo's charisma, among other things, is we kind of get early signs that he would be or is a specialist. Not that it's super important, but it's interesting. Then we get something that is not only terrifying, but supports my idea that Chrollo is tapping into his dark side almost. But we see him voice the villain and it almost looks like aura begins to seep out of him. I really think he's tapping into this dark side because, well, look at him. But I also feel like it's visually similar to when Gon became enraged with P2, and I'm not saying it's the same thing at all. Just that visually, it's similar. But especially when we see his dark outline, I think it shows the rage, anger, and sadness he has within him, all the negative feelings he's pushed down. And he tries to put on a good face for all the other kids in the same bad situation. But I think this rage and anger we see from him in this performance is true emotions he really feels. I also think that getting this glimpse into the rage Chrollo has within him is just more bad news for Hisoka, because with this new insight into Chrollo's past, I think Chrollo has more anger and other emotions brewing than anyone thought, or at least I thought. But even if you thought he had a lot of emotions going on, these flashbacks should just increase that amount even more, regardless. But another thing I think is that as Chrollo changes personalities, as he changes the way he voices these characters, it's almost like a reflection of Chrollo as a person. As he switches from the villain to one of the cleanup rangers, he changes to a kind, sweet persona, and I feel like it reflects his ability to manage, control, and conceal his emotions. And once again, when it comes to our current Chrollo, I think with this information, seeing him seeping with anger, almost like he can't control his emotion, just shows the level of pain he's in. I think that Chrollo was able to put on a strong face through Uvo and Pakunoda's death, although he was likely in tons of pain. But after Shalnark's death, after the death of his little brother, he hit a breaking point and he's struggling to control himself. And before these flashbacks, even if you thought something along those lines, it was still impossible to really see and feel until now. But moving on, Chrollo, Sheila, and Sarasa continue the finale of their performance. And it's cool seeing Chrollo almost change personas as he gives different lines. They finish their performance and the auditorium erupts in applause. And once again, just seeing all these kids so excited and happy hurts me, knowing it won't stay like this. Even if some of these kids are people who end up becoming not so great, I can't stand seeing anyone, especially kids, be so happy when I know nothing good lies ahead. After the show, the preacher pats Chrollo on the head, telling him he did a good job. And then Chrollo, Nobunaga, Sheila, Franklin, Shalnark, Paku, and Sarasa are walking in the woods talking about the screening, and they come across Uvo and Machi. Everyone kinda assumes a fight is about to happen, and Franklin says that Chrollo doesn't have to do this. But Chrollo says essentially that he knew what he was getting himself into. And I just like this bravery from Chrollo, because as far as he knows, he's about to get his ass beat, but he's willing to take it because he felt what he was doing was right. But Sarsa just walks past everyone and goes up to Uvo, and she turns around and comes back over to them and says, "That was pretty amazing, you bastard. Maybe you ain't so bad after all." Uvo and Chrollo are shocked, and Sarsa just looks at Uvo. She then says that was her dubbing Uvo, and Uvo's upset that she said his thoughts. But we then see the rest of the early troupe looking happy. They're finally all coming together, and yet again, it makes me upset that they came together under such happy circumstances, but we all know that only a dark path lies before them. Uvo then says that he knows there's more episodes on the videotape, and tells Chrollo next time, let him play the monster, or the villain. Nobunaga then says that he'll play the Green Ranger, Phaeton the Yellow, Finks the Blue, Shalnark a Professor, Franklin a King. We then get this beautiful panel that surprisingly made me a little emotional. As Uvo puts his hand out, he says, "Chrollo, what you did today hit me harder than any punch I've ever taken. It just hurt me so much to see this genuine emotion in the eyes of Uvo and Chrollo. To see someone as macho and tough as Uvo be so open and vulnerable and emotional just made me feel a lot of things. And on top of that, it just adds to the pain I feel for his death. I don't want to feel it, but I do." And for this side note, as of now, I still think Kurapika is way in the right for seeking vengeance on the spiders for unjustly slaughtering his clan. But to me, it's starting to seem that whatever caused the spiders to slaughter the clan, the reasoning behind the action is not as simple as they're evil. It's starting to look way more complicated than that. I don't want to sit here and say or come up with ways to justify the spiders for doing what they did, but I just can't help but think it's not as black and white as we once thought. And just one more time, I want to say how much emotion is in the art of Chrollo and Uvo coming together. And in my last video, I went over how Uvo wasn't that big brother figure yet, but he would be. And I think this moment right here cements him in his role as a big brother. Finally, to bring back up how during the screening Uvo had that second close-up, well, I think seeing all of the charisma and emotion Chrollo had, specifically when he played the villain, I think it spoke to Uvo on a personal level, that he wants to be or wants to be seen as a great villain. So seeing Chrollo as such a great villain did exactly what Uvo said. Chrollo's words hit him harder than any punch. We then see the spiders come together and goof around having fun. And I'm sure this might get annoying me saying this, but man, seeing them so happy makes me so sad. I think some time passes, although I'm not sure how much, but Uvo is asking Machi to take part in the dubbing for the rest of the episodes. Machi says she doesn't want to be a princess and she'll only play someone if she plays a bad guy. Franklin suggests she can be an evil queen, although Sheila was gonna play her. Finks then says why not have Sarasa play 2 different roles, but Chrollo is planning out all the scripts like the little genius he is, and says that she can't play those 2 roles because in later episodes they share a lot of screen time. Shawnarg then says they need more people and asks if they should recruit more. Franklin says that's a good idea, and then asks, doesn't that make them an official group? Uvo says they're a theater company, but Nobunaga says that doesn't sound quite right. And then Paku says they're more like a troupe. Chrollo says, isn't a troupe supposed to have 1,000 members? But Uvo says, who cares? Each one of us is worth 100 men. I assume Chrollo then says they'll call themselves a troupe. Someone then says, yeah, the something troupe. We just need a name now. And just wow. Out of all the ways I had imagined the troupe forming, coming together to do dubs of found videotapes is never something I would have considered. And I'm sorry, but this just adds more pain I feel. That they came together as something so pure, but remained together as something so evil, or at least it seems that way. Something super quick I want to mention. If we look at the things we actually see the spiders do, so the Kurta massacre doesn't count, I'll be honest, they don't do anything too much worse than things we've seen people like Gon and Killua do. And whether Togashi had it planned this far out or not, I think it's really interesting we've only really been told that the spiders were evil. We saw things to support that idea, such as killing and committing crimes, and as I write this I could be forgetting a thing or two, but killing mafia members, stealing artifacts, causing trouble, sneaking onto Greed Island, to me, thinking back, a lot of the things we've seen the troupe do were only seen as bad because we were told that the troupe were bad. Once again, only using things we've seen them do. All I'll say is that if Gon and Killua went around killing mafia members, stealing things, going to Greed Island not the right way, and committing various crimes, I don't think we would see them as villains. I think we only really see the troupe as bad because from the start we were told that they are. I will say though, Chrollo did totally use audience members in his fight with Hisoka like they were nothing. But my point isn't so much that the troupe are good guys, it's just that I think they're misunderstood. And more what I mean by that is, I think by being told so early on how evil they are, and really seeing them through the eyes of Kurapika, I think that it has clouded the people that they really are. I do not think that the things they've done can or should be excused, at least at this point, but I think it's really worth looking into as to how and why we think they're so evil, when not only have we not actually seen them do anything that I would call horrendous. I mean, Chrollo using civilians to fight Hisoka is really bad, but once again, I'm not trying to say they're good guys. What I'm trying to get at is whether Togashi had this planned, and I'm not confident he did, but I really like how we had this one solid idea of the spiders, but through the Black Whale arc, we started to see a different side to them. We see them as a dangerous, talented troupe, rather than just dangerous, mindless killers. And with this flashback, we begin what I believe is the true humanization of the troupe. I just love this evolution of the spiders, and I just love the idea that we, the readers, might have been wrong about them. This flashback just does so much for our understanding of the troupe, and I love it so much. But let's get back to the story. So Fink says that it would be really nice if they found another tape with more episodes, but Ufo says, yeah, it would be, but finding another one is like finding a needle in a haystack. Nobunaga then suggests that they just write a play because he thinks that the kids enjoy their performance more than watching the show. Sheila agrees and asks Chrollo what he thinks, but Chrollo says that they don't have the time or resources to make a play. And this talk about a play made me wonder if they got their name, the Phantom Troupe, because of the Phantom of the Opera. Just a small little potential detail that I thought was interesting. Anyway, Chrollo says they have 3 episodes to dub, so that gives them time to figure out what they're due once they're out of episodes. Uvo agrees and says they'll figure it all out after they're done rehearsing their lines. Sarsa says that Uvo is really taking it seriously, and Uvo says, when we started, I was good doing the bare minimum, but now I want to keep aiming for something, you know? Chrollo then asks what he's aiming for, and Uvo says, I want us to perform everywhere, so I can become the world's greatest villain. If you read this and didn't think about how amazing of a writer Togashi is and how good of a line that is, I guess let me explain it to you. It's just so amazing seeing the troupe formed and have their goals aligned by creating a dub of a show for kids to watch. For their goal to be to travel the world, and especially hearing Uvo say he wants to become the world's greatest villain, it's amazing writing and sad to hear that this is what their goals are, because in a way they did achieve it. But not in the way they dreamed of as kids. They did in fact travel the world. Uvo along with the troupe became the world's greatest villains, and in a twisted way, through their crimes, they performed for people all over the world. And it's just amazing writing, and it's heartbreaking that their sweet, innocent goals were destroyed by something we have yet to see. To have goals with such good intentions turned into goals of crime and violence, it's just a beautifully written line. Then someone asks where Sarasa is, and Fink says it was her turn to go looking for another tape. Chrollo is immediately worried, and asks if she went by herself, and Sharnark is like, yeah, it's okay, it's just around the corner. And they just continue rehearsing. We then see Sarasa happily humming as she walks through piles of trash. She says she can't wait to see everyone's reaction once she finds a tape, and she says that she knows about a huge pile of tapes near Uga Forest, and I have a feeling it'll be on the outskirts of the city, the exact place the preacher told Chrollo not to go alone, and that bad feeling is then just amplified by what we see next. We see the mafia van with the 3 kidnapped victims, and someone says that the security around and in Meteor City is getting tighter. The main guy then says that they've already hit their quota and paying the government won't be a problem. But this sick fuck says that they'll catch one more person just for fun. He says, we can cut loose and enjoy a good old Meteor City hunt, and the chapter ends. So a few thoughts about that before we go into the overarching ideas. So I was a little confused by what he meant by paying the government, because from last chapter we learned that the elders exchanged mafia recruits for protection, but with this line it appears something else is going on, and I'm not 100% sure what it is yet. However, it appears that this mafia group is either collecting people to then pay a certain government somehow, or there's more to their deal with the elders than just supplying recruits for the mafia. It's also very sad and looking pretty clear that something is going to happen to Sarsa, and by the man calling it a Meteor City hunt, I think that they have a far more evil plan than just kidnap her. And because of that, it's looking like something will happen between these men and Sarsa that could lead the troupe into becoming what they are now. Now for a few larger thoughts. I just love so much what we get from these flashbacks. I know some people didn't quite like this break from the main story, but like someone said in the comments of last video, this change of story and the quality it's written in is a breath of fresh air, and because it holds so much influence to the spiders on the black whale, nothing here is pointless or wasted. I think it's truly incredible how Togashi has gotten me, and I'm sure others, to feel for the spiders and enjoy them more than ever before. But other than that, not too many other thoughts. I still think something bad is gonna happen, and it's gonna happen soon. I was wrong about something bad happening on the day of the screening, but I still think something horrible is coming. I also still don't trust the church, not even a little. But finally, I want to share some thoughts I really liked that people had put in the comments. I just want to say I'm going to try to put the comments up on the screen to give credit to the people, but if I don't find them, I'm sorry about that. Number 1 was this idea of connecting the Kurta to the church. I saw someone say, what if something bad happens and the elders or the church put the blame on the Kurta? This blame on the Kurta could potentially lead to why the troupe killed them. And after this chapter, even if it's not super likely, I think it seems possible. With how we see the spiders, it's making less and less sense for them to kill the Kurta, so what if they were manipulated into doing it? The timeline seems a little funky, but I think there's potential there in that idea. And building off of that, I saw another person say that it's possible Sheila kinda just so happened to come across the Kurta, and then something bad happens to her, and then that is blamed on the Kurta. I thought that was a really interesting idea. Another thing I saw was someone mentioned that Krollo is missing his iconic forehead tattoo, which I don't know how I missed, but good catch, y'all. But they said, what if the church or the elders use or manipulate Krollo and then mark him with the tattoo as like a sign that he's theirs? I also think this is pretty likely because the tattoo seems very reflective of religion, and we got the church, so bing bang boom, it could all be connected. Finally, one last comment I had seen was someone saying that the church palace had influence from Christian, Buddhist, and Islamic architecture. Hopefully I said that all right. And after looking into it, that is 100% true. So it's possible Togashi's trying to critique religion as a whole. However, with the head preacher or bishop or pope, I think that the main critique is the potential evils or misdoings of Christianity. But man, I don't know how you caught that architecture thing. That is amazing. Round of applause to you. But with all that said, that'll finish up this week's chapter review. There are a few things I wanted to dive deeper into, but considering I'm traveling and visiting family, I wasn't able to dive into things as much as I'd like. I also just want to say I'm working on a deep analysis of Prince Saraidnik. Not sure when I'll be done with it, but just know it's in the works. Also, especially after my last video, please go in the comments. There are so many good ideas and occasionally really well thought out theories. I love all the comments I get, and I always try to read through them all. So as always, please leave your thoughts in the comments.